story starts, Close Encounters. She knocked on my front door at midday on Holly Eve, so I was in no mood to answer in that season of tricks. An old man expects more tricks than treats in this world. So I let that knocker knock on. Blim blam, knock knock, hurt my concentration. And filling old holes with powder and shot weren't no easy task to start with. Not as palsied as my hands had got in my 80th odd year. All right, damn your eyes, I hollered as I hitched up from the table. I knocked against it and a shaker tipped over, pebble, so I let it go. My ma wouldn't have approved of such language as that, but we all get old doing things our ma's wouldn't approve. We can't help it, not in this disposition, not in this sphere down below. I sidled up on the door trying to see between the edges of the curtain and the pane, but all I saw there was the screen-filtered light of the sun, which wouldn't set in my hollow till near about 3 in the day. Through the curtains was a shadow shape like the top of a person's head, but low like a child. Probably one of those Holton boys toting an orange coin carton with a photo of some spindle-shanked child eating hominy with its fingers. Some said those Holtons was like the Johnny Cash song, so heavenly minded they're no earthly good. What you want, I called, one hand on the deadbolt and one feeling for starving baby quarters in my pocket. Mr. Nelson, right? Mr. Buck Nelson? I'd like to talk a bit if you don't mind, inside or on the porch, your call. A female and no child, neither. I twitched back the curtain, saw a fair, pretty face under a fool hat like a sideways saucer. Lips painted the same black red as her hair. I shot the bolt and opened the wood door and kept the screen latched. When I saw her full length, I felt a rush of fool vanity and was sorry I hadn't traded my overalls for fresh that morning. Her boots reached her knees, but nowhere near the hem of her tight green dress. She was a little thing, hardly up to my collarbone, but a blind man would know she was full grown. I wondered what my hair was doing in back, and I felt one hand reach around to slick it down without my really telling it to. I've been answering every soul else calling Buck Nelson since 1894, so I reckon I should answer you too. What you want to talk about, Miss Haynes, she said, and I'm a wire reporter, stringing for Associated Press. A reporter, I repeated. My jaw tightened up. My hand reached back for the doorknob. You must have got the wrong man, I said. I'd eaten biscuits bigger than her T90 pocketbook, but she reached out of it a little spiral pad that she flipped open to squint at. But you, sir, are indeed Buck Nelson, Route 1, Mountain View, Missouri, writer of a book about your travels to the moon and Mars and Venus. By the time she fetched up at Venus, her voice was muffled by the door I had slammed in her face. I bolted it, cursing my rusty, slow reflexes. How long had it been since fool reporters come using around? Not long enough. Bee hunting, baiting a trap, if you will, and following the bees to the hive where he marks it in the woods. But then he looks up from the beehive he just found, and there's the reporter again. There she was, sitting on the lumpy leavings of the Macquarie chimney, a-kicking her feet and waving at me just like I had wished her out of the ground. I'd have to go past her to get home, as I didn't relish turning my back on her and heading around the mountain. Besides, she'd just follow me anyway. I unfolded my knife again and snatched up a walnut stick to whittle on as I clomped along to where she sat. Hello, Mr. Nelson, she said. Can we start over? I ain't a-talking to you, I said as I passed, pointing at her with my blade. I ain't even a-walking with you, I added, as she slid off the rock pile and walked along beside. I'm taking the directedest path home is all, and where you choose to walk is your own lookout. Fall in a hole and I'll just keep it going, I swear I will. I've done it before, left reporters in the woods to die. Oh, I don't believe you have, she said. At least today she was dressed for a tramp through the woods in denim jeans and mannish boots with no heels to them, but wearing the same face paint and fool hat. But I'm not walking with you either, she went on. I'm walking alone, just behind you. You can't even see me without turning your head. We're both walking alone together. I didn't say nothing. Are we near where it landed? She said. I didn't say nothing. You haven't had one of your picnics lately, have you? I didn't say nothing. You ought to have you another one. I didn't say nothing. I'm writing a story, she said, about close encounters. You know, the new movie with Richard Dreyfuss. He was in The Goodbye Girl and Jaws about the shark. Did you see those? Do you go to any movies? Some critter we had spooked, maybe a turkey, went thrashing off through the brush. I bet you saw Deliverance, she said. I didn't say nothing. My editor thought it'd be interesting to talk to people who really have, claimed their own close encounters, to have met people from outer space. Contactees, that's the word, right? You were one of the first contactees, weren't you, Mr. Nelson? When was it, 1956? I didn't say nothing. Oh, come on, Mr. Nelson, don't be so mean. They all talked to me out in California. Mr. Bethlehem talked to me. I bet he did, I thought. Truman Bethlehem always was a plum fool for a skirt. I talked to Mr. Fry and to Mr. King and Mr. Owens. I talked to Mr. Angelucci. Orfeo Angelucci, I thought. Now there was one of the world's original liars, as bad as Adamski. Those names don't mean nothing to me, I said. Well, they told the same story as yours in the 50s and 60s, meeting the Space Brothers, being taken up and shown wonders, and coming back to the earth with wisdom and all. If you talk to all them folks, I said, you ought to be brimful of wisdom yourself, full of something. Why you need to hound an old man through the woods? You're different, she said. You know a lot of things the others don't. A lot of things, like what? Well, you know how to hunt bees, don't you? I snorted. Hunt bees. You won't never need to hunt no bees, Miss Associated Press.